Hi everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Today we are going to whip up a batch of homemade granola bars. We're going to repurpose some of our herby yeast rolls from last night to make some Italian sliders and then whip up Italian salad with some homemade Italian dressing. So let's start by getting the base for our granola bars ready. We are going to use a half a stick of butter or 4 tablespoons. In here, you could also use coconut oil or that would work well with it. Regular oil wouldn't work as well, but coconut oil could work well in this. But I prefer the butter. Wrong burner. I'm going to turn my back burner on, and we're going to start melting the butter, and then we're going to add in a fourth of a cup, well, a little more, a heaping fourth of a cup of brown sugar. So it's kind of between a fourth and a half, I guess kind of like a third of brown sugar to here, and as well as a third cup of honey and this is going to be the binder for our rice, or not our Rice Krispie treats, for our granola bars. So I've got about a heaping fourth cup of brown sugar in there. We'll have it melt with our butter. And then we want about a third cup of honey. So I'm just going to eyeball my third cup because honey is one of those things that is just doesn't pour in and out well. It gets kind of sticky. So there we go. And you can go a little over or a little under. It's not a big deal in this recipe. We're going to let these, I'm going to give them a stir, and then essentially we're going to let it come to a boil for about 1 minute. And this is going to be the base for our granola bars. And then we can start whipping up our Italian sliders and our salad. So we just want to get this going first so it has time to cool. Get some of that there. I'm going to bring it down to about a 7 because I don't want it to boil a lot. Okay, our granola bars, we're going to be doing half oats and half Rice Krispies with them. So I'm going to put out 2 cups of oats on my baking sheet here, and we're going to pop these in the oven because toasted oats taste so much better in granola bars than raw because it gets rid of that raw taste. And so you don't need to bake them long, but it does just help make the granola bar taste better. So we're going to spread out 2 cups of oats. You can use old-fashioned or quick oats for this. I'm using old-fashioned, but either one works well. You don't want to use a steeled oat because they'll be too crunchy and too chewy. And we're going to go pop these in the oven. And we're going to let them bake for, I would say, about 6 or 7 minutes. We just want to kind of crisp them up just a little bit. They don't need to turn brown. We're going to bake them at 350, but it's going to help get out that raw oat flavor. So we're going to place these in here, and I'm going to set my timer for 6.5 minutes so I have enough time to get over here. But that's just going to make a much better ending product. So don't skip that step. It's really important. I'm going to give this a little stir, help that butter melt down. And then again, we're going to bring this to a boil, a small rolling boil for just a minute, but you don't want to cook it too long because when you boil sugar too long, it will turn into candy and your granola bars will be crunchy instead of chewy. We want a nice chewy granola bar. You could also, I used honey, but you could also substitute out, if you're not a fan of honey, for either like agave syrup or corn syrup will work as well. Okay, let's start prepping our sliders. So last night, I made these quick yeast rolls, and we seasoned them with some Italian spices on it. And so we had about half of them left over. So we are going to turn these into little mini Italian sliders for lunch today, because I'm a big proponent that if we do have leftovers, refashioning them into something. And so this is just a great way to do it. So we're just going to go through and cut them all the way through. So we've kind of got our sandwiches. I'm going to break them apart. But you can just see they just have a lovely kind of soft, pillowy crumb. They're still even like you could eat them fresh today if you wanted to, but they're just a little bit better. I'm going to put my tops over there. But using them as a sandwich, I think just works great. And because we're going to toast these up in the oven. And because we're going to toast these up in the oven with when we put our meat, and we're going to put some cheese on it, as well as some kind of Italian herb butter on it. So that toasting up in the oven after the oats are done will just make them even more delicious. Okay. So I got my tops over here. And here, for our kind of our Italian slider base, what we're going to do is we're going to use salami and pepperoni and then havarti cheese. And then we'll put on some butter. Some of them I'll put on a sun-dried tomato pesto on it, but not everybody in my family likes it. But they're just super quick, and it's just a great way to reuse rolls. Makes it cheaper, but these are such easy rolls. They're my like 1 hour yeast rolls, meaning they don't even take a whole hour to prep and make. That's like an hour from start to finish when they're done baking. But they're a hit. Okay, so I'm going to put about 3 slices of salami on each one. This is hard salami. You could also use Genoa salami if you want. 3 slices of salami on each one. This is hard salami. You could also use Genoa salami if you want. But I love it. Hard salami has a bit more flavor and sweetness than Genoa. Here we go. So we've got our salami on each one. Now we're going to go through with our pepperoni here. I just have leftover pizza pepperoni, but you could also buy the deli pepperoni, which are bigger slices. So, and this is going to be, if you've ever had like at, Subway, they have that Italian BMT. This is kind of like that. But it's just a lovely kind of sandwich. My kids always love salami and pepperoni. Okay, so we're just kind of putting them on each one. Don't worry if they overlap the salamis and stuff like that. And just a good handful of the pepperoni. I think I'm going to need even more. So we've got our pepperoni going on. There we go. So all of our salami, pepperoni, there's our meats. Now, since these are going in the oven, if you wanted to have a really feasty feast one, you could load it up even more. Okay, look at us. This is our honey and our brown sugar, and it's been in a boil for about 30 seconds. I'm going to give it a stir, because if you don't stir it and you just let it boil, it will boil up over your pot. So just give it a quick stir. And I'm going to turn the heat off now, because I don't want it to turn to candy. And we're just going to let it kind of come to kind of cool just a little bit. There we go. So pretty easy peasy with the base there. Okay, let's do let me get my softened butter here. So I've got my room temperature butter on my paddle, and we're just going to go over the tops over here, and I'm going to brush a little bit of butter on them, and then I'm going to add some Italian seasoning to it. That's going to give it a bit more flavor. Here we go. And then we'll add a pesto to some of them. And then we'll add our cheese, of course. Where is that's oregano. Here it is. I got all my things over here. So just a plain Italian spice. Just going to add a little bit to it. They're going to add it's going to give it a nice flavor kick to it. There we go. We'll spread that out and make sure it's evenly. And it will melt into that butter and kind of crisp up. I'm going to take a little sprinkle of salt here. You don't need much. And we're going to just sprinkle that over each one as well. And so I said, you don't need much. I don't even need that much. Okay. For a few of them, we're going to put on, this is a sun-dried tomato pesto. So this is going to give you a lovely, like, tomatoey flavor that kind of pairs well with the salami. And I'm just going to do that on a couple of them, because not everybody loves that here in our house. So I'm going to put it right on the pepperoni, because we'll put the cheese on top. That way the butter will crisp up. And I am just about out of this. There we go. So we've got this. You could also use a regular pesto to add even more flavor. Okay, let's get our havarti. I'm going to put a layer of havarti on each one. Now, you could use provolone or you could use Munster. Okay, we'll stop real quick. We'll go get our oats because they're beeping at us. It's funny how fast 6 minutes go by. My pot holders are over here. Okay, I hear you. So you can even just smell. I can smell the oats are done toasting. They don't have that raw smell. It has a nice toasted oat. And then while I'm over here, I'm going to turn my oven to the air fryer mode, which is like the same thing as a convection bake at 425. Let me grab a trivet to put my oats on. Okay. So I've got my oats here. We're going to pour them into our bowl to help them cool faster than if they sit on the tray, they're going to stay warm longer. The reason why I do it on a parchment paper because it's really easy to pick up and slide right into here. There we go. I can take this out of the way, but now shake them around. This will help the oats cool off because we will be adding chocolate chips in there and they will melt a little bit, but cool them off as much as possible. Okay. Before we go back to making our sliders, I'm going to add in about a half a teaspoon of vanilla into our mixture here. So there we go. And then we're going to just mix it up. And that's going to add just a really lovely flavor. And we'll add a pinch of salt. I like to do it while it's still hot because I feel like the flavors marry and the heat will help the salt dissolve a little bit. You want about a half a teaspoon of salt in here because it just kind of cuts through the sweetness and it really enhances the flavor of the honey. There we go. So we've got our sticky syrup here. This is going to be the binder for our granola bars. Anyway, let's get our cheese on here. So we're just going to layer our havarti on this side, and we're going to leave this side open so that butter will melt and then kind of toast up the bottom of our yeast rolls. Now, you could also use provolone or Munster, or I would say any really white kind of creamy based cheese. Gouda would work. You just don't want something that has a lot of intense flavor. Like a cheddar would not work well with this because it just, with the salami and the pepperoni, the cheddar just is such a strong flavor. They just don't marry well together. You want a mild, kind of a creamier based cheese for this. There we go. We're good with this part. So I'm not going to pop these in the oven yet because we're going to wait until we have our salad prepped. That way they'll be nice and hot when we take them out. So let's start getting our salad prepped for our things. We're going to just make a nice Italian salad with some peppers and cucumbers. And then we're going to make our homemade dressing. And then we'll be able to whip up our things. So I'm just going to slice up our romaine lettuce. And then we'll add this into our bowl. There we go. Just break apart any of those and mix them up well. Okay, I've got my tomatoes. We washed them off last night when we made a little caprese salad, so they are nice and clean. And we're gonna have these. Actually, I might even quarter them to go in there. We'll also be adding our kind of sweet peppers and some cucumbers. And I just lost a tomato. Pick it up before I step on it and fall to my death. Okay, let's quarter these up. And then we're also going to add in some chopped up pepperoni and salami. So kind of like an antipasto salad. This is one of my favorites. Just because I feel like I just love salami so much. It's one of those things where growing up, you know, I would go visit my grandparents or my step grandparents in Minnesota, and they were Polish. So they'd always go to this Polish deli or whatnot, but they would get hard salami there and head cheese And you don't even want to know what head cheese is. But I grew up eating it, so it's delicious to me. But we would, I'd always had that, and I've just loved it ever since. And even my kids now, they've eaten it. And it's such a different meat. Not everybody buys it, but I love it. It has a lot of flavor.
You have a question? Where at in Minnesota?
Minneapolis. So they lived right in Minneapolis. So I spent a lot of summers in Minneapolis there, and it's a great place. I will say have a lot of fond memories there.
We still spend every summer.
We do spend every summer. We visit. My sister has a lake house there, so we always go up there and stay a week at her lake house. Okay, let's add in some sweet peppers here. These snacking peppers, absolutely love. They're better than bell peppers, so I'm gonna grab a handful of them because you want the crunch for the salad. I'll give them a quick rinse. Peppers, so I'm gonna grab a handful of them because you want the crunch for the salad. I'll give them a quick rinse. The salami in there. I would also add red onions, but I used up my last red onion last night. So we're just gonna use a little bit of green onions in our dressing. We'll call it a day with that. Okay, good little choppity chop. You don't want to kind of make them small enough so that you'll be able to get them up with a fork. It's not going to be kind of like a grinder salad. You don't need to chop it that fine, or a chopped salad, but it's going to have a lot of those great flavors. I was deciding, I was like, ooh, should I make grinder sandwiches today? But I just opted for the classic kind of Italian melts because those are an everybody pleaser. Okay, we've got our last pepper going in. Here we go. And now we'll add in some cucumbers. This adds a really fresh pop. I love them. Baby cukes, it's just love. I even like Jack, he's 20 months old, and I'll give him a whole baby cucumber that I quarter up. And it's funny because he'll like suck on it and like chew on it. And then all of a sudden I'll be like cleaning up the kitchen afterwards, and I find like a baby cucumber piece like behind a cabinet. And I'm like, how did that get there? Because he's throwing them. But he loves like that. They're great on their gums, and it's kind of got a nice refreshing flavor. Okay. We've got our cucumbers in there. So we've got these is hard salami, but they're little bite-sized kind of pieces. So I'm going to just give them a rough chop, and we're going to throw them in our salad. So you want I want to say a good handful here. You don't need to have a huge amount, but I'm just going to quarter them. I think they're a little bit thicker cut than the like salami that you buy for sandwiches, but you could always use the exact same. This is our snack and salami. Here we go. Bruni, Poppy, they are literally staring daggers at the Amazon delivery guy. He's parked right outside our house right now. They're very fierce. The whole like 8 and 12 pounds of them. Now we're going to add in some pepperoni. So a good handful of it as well, just about equal parts. And we're going to quarter this as well and then toss it in there. And then I'm going to try to spread it apart because the pepperoni does like to stick together a little bit more. So we're just going to break it apart. There we go. And then we're going to use, I have some leftover fresh mozzarella, so I'm going to throw that in there. Loki or Bruni Grace. He's walking by right now. He actually smiled at the dogs when he walked by. They're so fierce. Okay. So we got our fresh mozzarella here. I'm going to quarter it, and we're going to use the rest of this up because it just is going to pair beautifully with the salad. Okay. We got this. We're going to break it apart in here. And you could use a regular mozzarella. You want it, you could use Parmesan cheese, provolone, Munster. You don't have to use fresh. So not everybody is a lover of fresh mozzarella, but you could totally use other cheeses in here or omit it all together if you wanted to. But I love fresh mozzarella. And when I have it, we're going to use it. There we go. Okay. let's start making our salad dressing for this. So we're going to do...
You have a question? How long you been cooking?
I've been cooking since I was 13 years old. So we have, it's been a long time. I feel like that's coming up on 25 years soon. I'm not 38 yet. I'm 37, but we still count those days. But I've been cooking for a while and I love it. I have no formal training or anything like that, but I've just really enjoyed like all the ins and out of cooking since I was a kid. I'd watch all the cooking shows growing up and I absolutely loved it. So we're going to make a kind of a herby, creamy balsamic vinegar, like an Italian for it. So we're going to mince up some green onions here. These are really big green onions. So I have 2, but this is probably closer to 4 of the normal size. You could also use chives if you wanted to, but these are just going to add a nice flavor. I'm actually going to take my dark green bits right here and I'm going to throw them in our salad because they're a little bit better. These will be better in the dressing because they'll let out their flavor and help give it a nice flavor. So I'm going to mince the bottom bits up a bit more. And this will give you a nice kind of oniony flavor. Red onions would be great in this salad, but we are out of red onions. So we just make what we can. I've got a good handful of fresh parsley here. So we're going to take this off, mince it up. And this will be like the fresh herb parts of our salad dressing. We're going to do half fresh, half dried to kind of get the nice balance. Take off the stalks here. And we're going to mince this up. Until we've got nice little bits. You don't want to have it all like leafy. You want smaller bits so it will slide on your salad better. Here we go. So we're going to add in, this is about 1/4 of a cup of fresh parsley. So you kind of have about 1/4 of a cup of minced green onions, 1/4 of a cup of fresh parsley. And that's kind of our fresh things. We are going to use some fresh lemon juice for this. So I'm going to squeeze that in there now. Pop out any seeds I see at the top. So you just want about 1/2 of a fresh lemon. If it's juicy, 1/2 works. If it's not juicy, then use the whole one up. You're looking for about 1.5 teaspoons. And this is just going to add a really fresh note to it. We're also going to be using some balsamic vinegar. So we want to make sure we're not just using one. We're going to add about 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. White balsamic would also be delicious. There we go. And 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Teensy bit more. And now to make it nice and creamy, we're going to use some mayo. And that's because we love a creamier here. We're going to use about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of creamy mayo, or of mayo to add to it. It's just going to add a lovely little flavor. And now we're going to add in some dried oregano, about 1 teaspoon. We're going to add in some Italian spices, about 1 teaspoon. So you're going to have the mixture of both the savory, like the fresh and the dried. And then let me grab my salt over here. We're going to add in about 1 teaspoon, maybe 1/2 teaspoon. We don't need quite 1 teaspoon. 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I want my pepper.
Do you know yet what you're making for dinner?
Yes, we're going to have salmon tonight, and we're going to bake up a sourdough loaf. That's as what I know, because I have a fillet of salmon that I need to use up. So I've got that far, and what I'm having with it, I'm not sure yet. Okay, our dressing is ready.
The fact that it seems like 5.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna do it earlier today. We're gonna do it around 5:30 because my son has a doubleheader basketball game tonight. So we want to get fed beforehand because we're not gonna get home until like 9:45 tonight. Okay, so we've got our nice vinaigrette here. Shake it up.
Question, is that a grinder salad?
It's not quite a grinder salad. It's an antipasto salad, which means it has like the salamis and the pepperonis and all the stuff. But a grinder means you've got to chop it up with the dressing. So it's like halfway there to one. We're going to throw in some olives because got to have an Italian salad with olives. Love olives. So much flavor. My favorite. It's funny, when I was little, I hated olives, and now as an adult, I just love olives. So we've got our olives here. I'm going to steal one because so good. So we have our salad prepped, our dressing prepped. Let's pop this in the oven, and then we're going to make up our granola bars, and we'll be able to serve up lunch. Pretty easy today. So I have my oven set on my air fryer setting. You could do convection bake if you wanted. That will work out just well. These only need to be in here for about 2 to 3 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer for 2.5 minutes. That way I have 30 seconds to kind of get over there and get working on it, because the air fryer really pushes that heat around pretty fast. Okay, we've got our oats. They're cooled now. Our sauce is pretty cool. This is our honey, brown sugar, and butter base with a little bit of vanilla and salt in it. Oh, forgot to add the Rice Krispies. I definitely need to add the Rice Krispies first. Otherwise, they'll be harder to mix in. So you do 2 cups of oats, of our toasted oats, with 2 cups of Rice Krispies. You know, it's funny, when I was a kid, I do not remember granola bars having Rice Krispies in them. But now they all do. It's a good filler. So 1 and 2. We're going to mix in our sauce. Look at that. And this is going to have, it's going to give you a nice honey flavor to your granola bars. And we absolutely love honey, so I think it just works really well for our family. If you're not a big fan of honey, you could always switch the honey out in this recipe for either corn syrup or agave, which will give you a much milder, it won't have a honey taste at all. Here we go. And we're going to mix these up and kind of coat them with that sauce. There we go. And these are going to be a chewy granola bar. So when this cools, it won't harden super hard, but it will keep everything firm and together. Okay, we've got our mixtures in. Now we're going to add in the things that make them delicious. I've got some mini M&Ms, mini chocolate chips, and I found mini peanut butter M&Ms, which I think is a win. So these kind of remind me of, they don't make them anymore, but as a kid, they had those Kudos bars, and I love them. So this is kind of what these remind me of. Apparently, I need scissors. So we're going to put in about a 1/2 cup of mini chocolate chips. Now these will probably melt in there, but it adds a really great flavor. So, and I'm not patient enough to wait for everything to cool down. So they do melt a little bit, but they're so good. Okay, let's add these in. And then we're gonna go grab our sliders out in just a second. They'll be fine for a second. We're gonna get these mixed in. That way we can press them forward. And then for our mini M&Ms and our things, these are our peanut butter ones. We're going to add about a 1/3 cup of this and a 1/3 cup of the mini ones. That way we're going to have a peanut butter and mini together. Oh, are you stealing? I will say they're not as good as the regular peanut butter M&Ms. They have too much shell to ratio, but he's going to eat them anyways. And then we've got our mini M&Ms. Add about a 1/3 cup. I said the mini peanut butter M&Ms, if you're right there, the regular ones are way better. There's too much shell ratio to it, but I thought they would add a nice little pop. But look at this beautiful granola bar base. Let's go grab our sliders out. And then, let me grab my pot holder. Then we can press these into their molds, and then we'll serve up lunch. Grab this. I hear ya. Look at our beautiful little cheese dripped over, but do you see that melted cheese? And then look how our rolls are toasted up. You see that golden color on the side? Cancel that off. There we go. So while this cheese is still hot and melty, I'm gonna put our rolls on top here because that will help the cheese stick. But this is where you're getting that nice Italian herb butter on it. That's gonna stick into the cheese and it's gonna add so much flavor. And this is such a great way to reuse your rolls that you have. Okay, so we're gonna let that sit for a second because they're hot. Let's press in our granola bars and we are gonna be ready to serve up. So my trick for my granola bars, where did I put it? I had a spray, maybe I didn't take it out. You wanna spray your sheet pan or your little pan with some oil or butter it. That way when they firm up, they'll slide right out. You could put parchment paper in here, but I find this works just as well and I don't have to waste the parchment paper. And we're gonna put this in here and then we're gonna press it firm. In order for your granola bars to stick together, you have to press it down. It's just like with Rice Krispies or any like a cereal bar, that pressing it together is gonna have it form together. Otherwise, it will be fluffy and it will fall apart. So we're gonna scoop all of this mixture in here. Don't want any of it to go to waste. So good, so good. These are like a staple in here. I make these all the time because the kids just love them. Let me grab my parchment paper here. I'm gonna grab a sheet. And we're just gonna go over the edge of it. And you're just going to push it down until you've got a nice, even section. There we go. And just firmly push down so you don't have any like fluffy pockets, because then your thing will crumble and not hold together in the bar form. But look, once they've cooled down completely, then you can cut them into the squares and then put them in an airtight container. But these, they taste so good. They have that nice honey flavor to them and they're just amazing. And it's just a great way to do a quick like homemade granola bar in no time. Okay, let's get our lunch served up. Let me get some tongs for our salad. And I'm gonna get a spatula let's grab this guy. We're serving it up because it's gonna be nice and hot. Okay.
You have a question about the recipe for the granola bars?
Yes.
And do you post them to the profile or anything?
So the best way to get our recipes, the quickest way would be to we upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you like, you can always go back, search for it. We always put like the title and like granola bars. You could go and rewatch it. All of our videos have a transcription on it, so they'll have the writing of the ingredients and I walk through it. That is the best way. Occasionally I do send out like free recipe cards for everyone, but most of those go into my membership because they do take me about 30 minutes to an hour to create a nice little pretty thing for it. So I give the videos free to everybody, but recipe cards, I send them out, but most of the time they're just for our members. But they're delicious, easy. So you should be able to make them home. You can rewatch this video. Okay, are we ready to serve up? Let me slide this here. So this is our antipasto salad, and we are going to give it a quick mix. Look at that. You get all those ingredients mixed around, and then we're gonna add it onto our plate, and then we're gonna dress it with our homemade salad dressing. Get a nice, good serving of this. Pop it on there. This is our creamy Italian vinaigrette. We are going to drizzle it over. We made this using lemon juice, balsamic vinegar, mayo, fresh herbs, green onions, parsley. Look at that, beautiful. And it just has a nice tanginess to it. And then, of course, we have our Italian sliders here. I'm going to chop them apart because they're sticking together. But look at these delicious Italian sliders. That cheese melting. We have salami, pepperoni on there. We added some sun-dried pesto to ones, and then we put butter and Italian herbs and like seasoning on it so that when it melted, it'll have that beautiful flavor in it. But just a simple, quick, easy lunch made from our leftovers, which is great. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're making for our family, and hopefully teach you something along the way. We do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of our recipes at home, you can always go back, search for the video, and recreate them as well. We also have an Amazon storefront. So if you saw any of the kitchen materials that we use, I essentially just took up my Amazon browser history and put it in a storefront because so many people are asking, like, what knives did you use? What spatula did you use? What that? I have it all there. There's the link in our profile to that. So if you were wondering what it was, you can always go to that and look at it as well. But again, guys, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe.